Royce Adeyemi had everything money could buy. Private jets, tech acquisitions that restructured entire industries, a mint green tuxedo collection that made Wall Street boards shift uncomfortably in their chairs, and 3 penthouses split between New York, London, and Dubai. At 36, he was already counted among the most powerful Nigerian-American investors of his generation. 5'6" of compact, quiet authority, sharp jawline, dark eyes that read every room before his feet fully entered it, a stillness about him that unsettled people who expected loud men to be the dangerous ones. His voice was low, measured, the kind that made lawyers put down their pens and simply listen. Yet none of that, not $1, not one acquisition, not one city skyline, protected him from the most powerful force in his life. His mother. It started on a Sunday morning in New York that had absolutely no business being as dramatic as it became. Royce was at his desk reviewing a 9-figure infrastructure deal when his phone lit up beside the keyboard. Mommy Africa. He stared at it for exactly 3 seconds. He closed his eyes. He answered. His mother appeared on screen wearing a ghillie so architecturally ambitious it seemed to require its own structural permit. She did not greet him. Royce. Good morning, Ma. You are 36 years old. He blinked slowly. I'm aware, Ma. Are you planning to marry your quarterly report? He sighed slowly, as one who knows what manner trouble such question from an African mom comes with. No, Ma, he responded. Then behave like it. She adjusted her ghillie with the energy of a woman who had already decided everything. There is a girl, Natasha. Her family is good. She is presentable. She is ready. I have already spoken to her. Royce leaned back in his chair. Manhattan glittered behind him, 40 floors of indifferent ambition. Ma, I want someone who loves me, not my portfolio. She squinted at him through the screen, the specific squint of a Nigerian mother who has heard this argument before and remains completely unmoved by it. Then hide your portfolio. He went still. Hide it, she repeated, with the calm of someone explaining something very simple to someone being unnecessarily slow. Dress like a man who has nothing. Go to Abuja. Walk on the street. See who treats you like a human being. He stared at her. You want me to disguise myself. I want you to find a wife before I find a grave. She paused. That was dramatic. But the point stands. Ma, this is not. Even in the Bible, people disguise. Who disguised in the Bible, Ma? Silence. Somebody important. I will find the verse. Royce pressed his fingers to the bridge of his nose. Business deals he could close in his sleep. Boardrooms he could dominate without raising his voice. But a Nigerian mother on a Sunday morning with a mission, there was no MBA, no strategy, no acquisition structure in the world that prepared a man for that. After the call ended, he sat for a long time. The skyline stared back at him. He had built things, bought things, scaled things, and still the penthouse was quiet in the particular way that expensive spaces are quiet. Not peaceful, just empty. Women had come before, certainly. Dinners at restaurants with waiting lists. Weekend trips on private yachts. Every one of them arriving with warmth in their eyes, and, somewhere behind the warmth, a calculation running quietly in the background. He was tired of being evaluated. Tired of watching a woman's gaze move from his face to his watch in the space of a single breath. He picked up his phone, called his assistant. Prepare the jet. We're going to Abuja. Sir, for how long? He looked at the Manhattan skyline one final time. Until I find something real. Meanwhile, in Abuja, Natasha was already glowing. She stood before her mirror, black and cream floral blouse pressed perfectly, black pencil skirt fitted precisely, crossbody bag position just so. Royce is coming, she told her reflection, and her reflection glowed back in full agreement. She had not left this to chance. 4 weeks, she had been running a quiet operation inside the Adeyemi household. Arriving with fruit baskets, reorganizing the house staff with cheerful efficiency, pressing fresh juice she didn't drink herself, and settling softly beside Royce's mother on the sitting room sofa. Big Mommy, she would say gently, placing her hand over the older woman's with practiced warmth. Don't worry about anything at all. When Royce and I are settled, I will take care of this home like it is my own. His mother would nod, glowing. Responsible. Grounded. Ready. What his mother could not see was the second calculation running underneath, the Maitama Mansion floor plan she had already memorized, the joint account timeline she had already drafted in her head, the exit strategy she had already rehearsed. She had even mentally choreographed her reaction when Royce proposed. A soft, disbelieving gasp, one hand over her heart, eyes filling with tears. She had practiced it twice. It was very good. Back in New York, Royce stood before his mirror one last time. Clean, simple, composed, sharp jawline, dark eyes, the stillness that boardrooms feared. He looked every bit the man he was, and somewhere beneath all of it, something quieter moved. God, he murmured with the smallest possible smile, please do not let me land in Abuja and propose to a woman who has already priced the wedding venue. He did not know that in Abuja, one particular woman had not only priced it, she had shortlisted the caterers. And he did not know, could not yet have known, that standing slightly behind Natasha at the arrival's gate, carrying almost nothing, wearing almost nothing remarkable, saying almost nothing at all, was the only person in that airport who was exactly who she appeared to be. Little did Royce know, one woman in Abuja had been rehearsing this moment for months. Another had simply gotten dressed that morning and walked out of her door. Fate, as it always has, preferred the second kind. The first thing Royce noticed about Abuja wasn't the heat. It was Natasha's volume. She was at the arrival's gate before he cleared customs. Black and cream floral blouse, black pencil skirt, cross-body bag swinging with practiced elegance, smile arriving 3 seconds before the rest of her. Royce, you look exhausted. American stress does this to people. Don't worry, Big Mommy and I have been taking care of everything. His mother stood beside her, beaming with the pride of a woman who had personally arranged the universe. Royce smiled politely, hugged them both, said the right things. On the drive to Maitama, Natasha talked without pause, rearranging his calendar, his social schedule, his future, all with the cheerful authority of someone who had already moved in emotionally and was simply waiting for the paperwork. I adjusted the living room. The old layout was too corporate. Big Mommy agreed completely. His mother nodded from the front seat like a satisfied co-director. Royce looked out the tinted window at Abuja rolling past. The mansion, when they arrived, was glittering. Marble floors, gold accents, everything polished enough to reflect back whatever you brought into it. Something underneath, all of it felt hollow. He almost missed her entirely, standing slightly behind Natasha at the gate, carrying one plain bag, white blouse, quiet eyes, saying almost nothing. Zara, he noticed. He said nothing. It started with small. That was the word Natasha used. Always sweetly, always with a slight tilt of her head, always accompanied by a smile that had clearly been rehearsed in a well-lit mirror. Just a few small things. The boutique in West 2 took 45 minutes, and looked like a short novel when the bill arrived. Roy stood calmly, hands in pockets, observing. She emerged from the dressing room in 3 different outfits. He said beautiful each time. Inside, he was taking notes. Outside the mall, Natasha froze. A purple Range Rover sat gleaming in the afternoon sun, white interior visible through the window like a prophecy she had personally ordered from the universe. I have always loved that car, she said softly. Royce looked briefly at the sky. 30 minutes later, the dealership was celebrating. That evening, under chandelier light, Natasha settled close beside him on the sitting room sofa, closer than necessary, softer than usual. There's just one small thing I wanted to mention. There was that word again. It's embarrassing to always ask before spending. Maybe I should simply have access to your account. To manage things properly. She smiled wider. As your future wife. Royce had not proposed. He tilted his head slightly. Future wife. When exactly did that meeting happen? She laughed nervously. That night, he heard her in the corridor. Voice low, warmth completely gone. Businesslike and precise. Nothing remaining of the woman who called his mother Big Mommy in daylight. Once the transfer clears, I'm gone. Roy stood completely still. No expression. No reaction. Just silence. And then clarity, cold, sharp and absolute. The experiment was born. Royce announced it at breakfast. Calm, apologetic, completely convincing. Urgent business in New York. A deal requiring his physical presence. Completely unavoidable. He was sorry. Natasha's face moved through 3 emotions in 4 seconds before settling on dramatically wounded. You just arrived. Her voice carried the precise weight of a woman who had already mentally selected honeymoon destinations. Bim placed a hand on her shoulder immediately. Don't worry. These things happen. We'll use the time to plan properly. His mother said nothing. just watched him with eyes that had known him for 36 years and were not remotely deceived. Later, behind the closed door of a private room in the Maitama mansion, Royce stood before a mirror and became someone else entirely. Thick beard, full, unkempt, swallowing his jawline completely. Worn white linen shirt, soft from too many washes. Gray trousers with no authority in them whatsoever. A colorful knit beanie, pulled low over his hairline. Dark glasses finishing the erasure. He barely recognized himself. The door opened. His mother stood in the frame. She stared at him for a full 5 seconds, silent, unblinking, processing. Then slowly, from somewhere deep and genuinely delighted, a grin spread across her face. "If I see you on the street," she said, "I will cross to the other side of the road." He adjusted the beanie. "Good." Abuja woke up the next morning to nothing unusual. Just another man sitting quietly on a roadside curb and was too, worn sandals on his feet, a plate in his hands, a beanie on his head. Nobody looked twice. The beggar took his position and waited. They came out of the boutique like an announcement. Natasha led, gold sequin mini dress catching the afternoon sun, designer bag swinging with the confidence of a woman who had never once questioned her own arrival. Straight hair gleaming, Lagos society smile fully deployed, heels striking the pavement like punctuation. Behind her, Bimp matched the energy stride for stride, blue floral jumpsuit, sunglasses pushed up dramatically, branded bags in both hands, laughing at something that existed only inside their orbit. Behind them both, slightly apart, moving at her own unhurried pace, Zara. Simple white blouse, small bag, quiet eyes scanning the street with the gentle curiosity of someone who actually noticed the world she was walking through. Royce stretched out his bowl from the curb. Natasha's nose wrinkled almost imperceptibly. She kept walking without breaking stride, already talking again before she had fully passed him. Bimp adjusted her sunglasses, kept walking. Royce lowered his head, waited. Then footsteps slowed, stopped. He looked up slowly. Zara stood in front of him, not performing concern, not checking if anyone was watching, not calculating anything at all. Just present, just looking at him directly, the way people rarely do. "When did you last eat?" 4 words. No audience. No applause. The crowd moved around them, entirely indifferent. Royce felt something shift in his chest, quiet and irreversible, like a door opening that had been sealed for a very long time. She came back the next afternoon. No announcement. No performance. Just Zara, white blouse, flat shoes, a simple food container in one hand and bottled water in the other, lowering herself onto the curb beside him like it was the most natural thing in the world. She didn't explain herself, didn't look around to see who was watching. The Abuja afternoon heat rose off the pavement in visible waves, and she sat in it, completely unbothered, and handed him the food. She came back the day after that, too. And the day after. They talked about her work translating documents for a firm in Garki, about the particular exhaustion of being the only serious person in a group of people performing seriousness, about the way Abuja changed depending on which street you were standing on. She asked about his life with the kind of genuine curiosity that had no angle behind it. When he said something dry and quiet, she laughed freely, unguarded, unrehearsed, the laugh of someone who found things funny rather than someone managing an impression. One afternoon, she studied him for a moment without apology. "You have kind eyes," she said simply. Royce almost forgot to breathe. Nobody had ever said that. Boardrooms gave him powerful. Women across candlelit dinners gave him intense or magnetic or intimidating. Kind. He held that single word, quietly for days afterward. Carefully, the way you carry something you're afraid to put down in case you can't find it again. He manufactured the reason carefully. A relative upcountry. A visit he couldn't avoid. Nothing presentable to wear. Zara didn't hesitate for a single second. She marched him to a clothing store 3 streets from the main road. Not the Was 2 boutique, not anywhere with a branded bag or a waiting list. A modest shop with a practical owner and shirts folded in neat stacks by size. She moved through it with focused, unhurried attention, checking collars, testing fabric between her fingers, holding things against his frame with the unself-conscious efficiency of someone solving a straightforward problem. She pulled a shirt from the rack and held it up. "This one fits your shoulders." He raised an eyebrow beneath the beard. "You notice my shoulders?" She paused for exactly 1 beat. They're hard to miss. Then she moved on to the trousers, completely unbothered. At the counter, she paid from her own purse. No glance backward for approval. No waiting to be thanked. Just paid, folded the receipt, and handed him the bag. Royce stood in that small Abuja shop in complete silence. The man who had signed a check for Natasha's purple Range Rover without flinching was entirely undone by 2 shirts and a pair of trousers purchased by a woman who barely spent on herself. That evening, without drama, she offered him her spare room. "The mosquitoes on that curb will finish you," she said simply. His entire strategy, every calculation, every controlled variable, every carefully managed wall, began quietly and irreversibly to collapse. The night air in Maitama was heavy with the scent of blooming jasmine as Royce slipped into the mansion, a ghost in his own home. Under the cold fire of the crystal chandeliers, his mother stood waiting. He didn't remove the beard. The scratch of it against his jaw served as a reminder of the stakes. "Ma, I think I've found someone," he murmured. She studied him, her gaze sharp enough to peel back his layers. "Natasha's friend." Royce nodded. Silence stretched between them, thick and expectant, until a slow, mischievous smile transformed his mother's face. It wasn't the look of a matriarch, but of a strategist. "Marry her first," she whispered, her voice a sharp blade, "before you reveal a single thing. If Natasha hears of this, she will burn everything to the ground, including this house." He returned to Zara's apartment to find the air choked with the smell of expensive perfume and cheap entitlement. Natasha and Bimp were sprawled across the furniture, laughing as they carved up a future that wasn't theirs. Royce watched from the shadows of the doorway, invisible behind his disguise. As their shrill plans filled the room, his eyes darkened. The game had changed. The timeline had just accelerated. The sun dipped low over the Millennium Park waterfront, bleeding gold and amber across the lake as the evening breeze tugged at the edges of Zara's hair. Her white blouse caught the last of the warmth, making her glow against the deepening shadows. Royce stopped walking, the silence of the park wrapping around them like a secret. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple ring. No flashy diamonds, no engineered prestige, just honest, polished metal. "Will you marry me?" The world seemed to hold its breath. The only sound was the rhythmic lap of water against the bank. Zara studied his eyes, searching for the punchline, but found only a steady, unguarded heat she hadn't seen before. "You're serious," she breathed. "I have never been more serious with 0 naira in my pocket," he replied, a trace of his true self flickering through the disguise. Zara laughed, a bright, sudden sound that died into a profound stillness. "Yes," she whispered. In that moment, the beggar forgot he was playing a part. He was simply a man loved for who he was. But the peace was short-lived. By midnight, Bimp's frantic report reached Natasha, who sat in the dark, already sharpening her claws for the coming war. The wedding morning in Abuja broke with a heat that shimmered over the pavement. Zara sat before her mirror, the lace of her veil trembling against her collarbone as her heart drummed a frantic Afrobeat. She closed her eyes, offering a small, desperate prayer. "God, please, let this man own at least 1 iron shirt." Outside, Natasha and Bimp arrived like a storm of silk and ego, dressed as if they personally funded the Federal Capital Territory. Natasha flipped her hair, her gaze sweeping the modest venue with lethal disdain. "I give this wedding 20 minutes," she announced. Then the sound arrived, a low, expensive hum that vibrated in the chest. A convoy of sleek black Range Rovers rolled through the gates, followed by the clinical snap of doors. Bodyguards in dark suits stepped out, scanning the perimeter with practiced eyes. Finally, he stepped onto the pavement. Royce Adeyemi was gone, and in his place was a man of unignorable authority. No beard, no headband, no worn linen. He wore a mint-green tuxedo that caught the light, standing 5'6" of pure, polished power. The venue fell into a vacuum of silence. Natasha's mouth drifted open. "My boyfriend." He walked past her as if she were a shadow, parting the crowd until he reached Zara. She was frozen, her breath caught in her throat, because the man before her was the beggar, and yet absolutely not the beggar. He smiled softly. "Shall we?" He turned then, his voice cutting through the air as he dismantled Natasha's schemes and the corrupt associates who had underestimated him. He spoke of the one variable they missed, the woman who stopped when no one else would. Natasha's sequins seemed to dull instantly. Bimp leaned in, whispering, I knew something was off about that headband. Royce leaned close to Zara, his voice for her alone. Thank you for loving me before the tuxedo. Zara smiled through her tears, her hand tightening on his. Next time, to shave. Abuja erupted. The beggar was the richest man in the room, but he had found the only woman who treated the nothing like it mattered. And in doing so, she got everything.
You look absolutely stunning, my love.
Thank you. I can't believe this day is finally here.